From a child actress whose mother's homesickness changed TV history to a 7-foot actor playing monsters while secretly married to his co-star, the beloved sitcom 227 harbored secrets that would make even the gossipy Mary Jenkins gasp. Behind the front stoop of this Washington D.C. apartment building lay bizarre casting coincidences, Emmy-winning feuds, and a play that accidentally became television history when its creator wrote it to prove a point to her sons. Fact 1. The show started a year early by accident. When television executives plan a new show, they typically map out every detail months or even years in advance, but sometimes the most successful series come together through pure chance. The sitcom 227 was supposed to debut in 1986, giving everyone involved plenty of time to prepare, but an unexpected cancellation at another network completely changed those plans and accelerated the timeline by an entire year. Marla Gibbs, who had become a household name playing the sharp-tongued maid Florence Johnston on The Jeffersons, was still under contract with that show when NBC first expressed interest in creating a starring vehicle for her. Since The Jeffersons was still airing successfully on CBS and showing no signs of slowing down, everyone assumed Gibbs would remain tied up with her Florence character well into 1986, making that the earliest possible launch date for any new project. The creators and producers of what would become 227 built their entire production schedule around this assumption, planning to spend 1985 developing scripts, casting supporting roles, and fine-tuning the show's concept. NBC also structured their programming lineup with this timeline in mind, leaving the fall 1985 schedule completely free of any plans for Gibbs' new series. However, in a move that shocked both fans and industry insiders, CBS made the surprising decision to cancel The Jeffersons after 11 successful seasons, ending the show's run in 1985 rather than allowing it to continue. This sudden cancellation freed up Marla Gibbs much earlier than anyone had anticipated, creating an unexpected opportunity that NBC was quick to seize. With their star suddenly available and eager to move forward, the network made the bold decision to fast-track production and premiere 227 in the fall of 1985 instead of waiting another year. This accelerated timeline meant that everyone involved had to work at breakneck speed to get the show ready for its September debut, but the rush ultimately paid off, as the series found its audience immediately and became one of NBC's most popular sitcoms of the decade. Fact 2. Originally turned down by ABC. In the world of television development, networks often pass on shows that later become massive hits for their competitors, and 227 represents one of the most significant missed opportunities in broadcasting history. According to Marla Gibbs herself, the show that would eventually become one of NBC's most beloved sitcoms was initially pitched to ABC, where executives made the decision to pass on what they apparently didn't recognize as a potential goldmine. The rejection by ABC wasn't necessarily unusual in the television industry, where networks regularly turn down dozens of potential series each year based on everything from budget concerns to programming strategies that may not align with a particular show's concept. However, what makes this particular rejection noteworthy is how dramatically different the landscape of 1980s television might have looked if ABC had chosen to move forward with the project instead of letting it slip away to their competition. When ABC declined to pick up the series, the creators and Marla Gibbs didn't give up on their vision of bringing the story of Mary Jenkins and her Washington, D.C. an apartment building neighbors to television audiences. Instead, they took their concept to NBC, where executives immediately saw the potential in a show that would showcase Gibbs' talents as a leading lady, rather than the supporting character she had played for years on The Jeffersons. NBC's decision to embrace the project proved to be incredibly wise, as 227 became a cornerstone of their Saturday night programming lineup and helped establish the network's dominance during one of the most competitive periods in television history. The show's success at NBC also paved the way for other groundbreaking series featuring predominantly African-American casts, creating opportunities that might not have existed if the series had found a home elsewhere or never made it to air at all. This near miss with ABC demonstrates how the television industry's decision-making process can sometimes overlook projects that seem obvious hits in hindsight, and how one network's rejection can become another network's treasure when the right executives recognize a show's true potential. Fact 3. Based on creator's real Chicago address. The television series 227 gets its name from more than just a random apartment building number chosen by writers in a Hollywood conference room, because the address actually comes from creator Christine Houston's real childhood home, where she experienced the neighborhood dynamics that would later inspire millions of viewers. Houston grew up at 227 East 48th Street in Chicago's historic Bronzeville neighborhood during the 1950s, and the memories from that specific address became the foundation for everything audiences would come to love about the show. Bronzeville was a vibrant African-American community on Chicago's South Side that served as a cultural hub during the mid-20th century, attracting families, artists, and working-class residents who created the kind of tight-knit neighborhood atmosphere that Houston would later recreate in her writing. The apartment building where young Christine lived was filled with the same type of colorful characters, daily gossip sessions, and interconnected relationships that would become the heart of her television series decades later. When Houston sat down to write what would eventually become the hit sitcom, she drew directly from her personal experiences of living in that particular building, remembering the way neighbors gathered on front steps to share news and opinions about everything happening in their lives and community. The building's layout, the dynamics between different families, and even specific conversations she had witnessed as a child all found their way into her original stage play, 227. Houston has been open about how much of the show's authenticity came from these real-life observations, explaining that the characters and situations weren't invented from scratch, but were instead based on actual people and events she had experienced firsthand. The decision to keep the exact same address number when adapting her play for television was a deliberate choice to honor those childhood memories and maintain that connection to the real Chicago neighborhood that had shaped her understanding of community, family, and the importance of having people who care about your daily life just a few steps away from your front door. Fact 4. Written on a dare to prove education's value. The play that would eventually become the hit television series 227 started as a mother's attempt to set a powerful example for her children when Christine Houston decided to return to college at the age of 42, specifically to demonstrate to her sons that education was valuable at any stage of life. Houston enrolled at Kennedy King College in Chicago, not because she needed a degree for career advancement, but because she wanted to show her boys through her own actions that learning and personal growth should never stop, regardless of age or circumstances. While attending classes and working toward her degree, Houston found herself surrounded by much younger students who initially questioned whether someone her age belonged in a college environment, but she quickly proved that her life experience and determination made her just as capable as any traditional student. The pivotal moment came when some of her fellow students and friends challenged her writing abilities, essentially daring her to create something meaningful that would demonstrate her creative talents beyond the classroom assignments everyone was completing. This dare wasn't meant to be cruel or dismissive, but rather emerged from the kind of friendly competition that often develops among students who are getting to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. Houston had been sharing stories about her childhood in Chicago, and the colorful characters who had lived in her apartment building, and her classmates suggested that if these memories were as vivid and entertaining as she claimed, she should turn them into a proper stage play. Never one to back down from a challenge, Houston took their dare seriously and began crafting what would become 227, drawing on those cherished childhood memories of life at her old address on East 48th Street. The play was initially written as a response to her friend's challenge, but Houston quickly realized she had tapped into something much deeper and more universal than just a classroom exercise, creating characters and situations that resonated with anyone who had ever lived in a close-knit community where everyone knew everyone else's business. Fact 5. First African-American woman TV creator. When 227 premiered on NBC in 1985, Christine Houston achieved a milestone that had never been reached before in the history of American television, becoming the first African-American woman to receive a Created By credit for a primetime series. This groundbreaking achievement represented more than just a personal accomplishment for Houston, as it marked a significant moment in the ongoing struggle for representation and recognition in an industry that had historically excluded women of color from creative leadership positions. The television industry in the 1980s was still predominantly controlled by white male executives and creators, with very few opportunities for women or people of color to develop their own original programming concepts and see them through to broadcast. While African American performers had been appearing on television for decades, the behind-the-scenes creative roles that actually shaped what audiences saw on their screens remained largely inaccessible to anyone outside the established industry networks. Houston's "created by" credit wasn't just a symbolic gesture or honorary title, but rather a legitimate recognition of her role as the original creator of the characters, storylines, and overall concept that millions of viewers came to love. Her original stage play, 227, provided the foundation for everything that appeared on television, from the setting and character relationships to the specific dynamics that made the show appealing to such a broad audience. This historic first opened doors for other African American women who had creative visions they wanted to bring to television, proving that stories from diverse perspectives could find mainstream success when given the proper platform and support. Houston's achievement also demonstrated that authentic storytelling rooted in genuine cultural experiences could resonate with viewers across different backgrounds, challenging the industry assumption that shows needed to appeal to the broadest possible demographic by avoiding specific cultural details. The significance of Houston's "created by" credit extends beyond just the television industry, as it represented a breakthrough in an entertainment landscape where women of color had been systematically excluded from positions of creative authority, making her success a pioneering moment that would inspire future generations of diverse storytellers. Fact 6. Sandra Clark was never supposed to be regular. One of the most beloved and memorable characters on 227 almost never existed beyond a single appearance, because Sandra Clark was originally conceived as nothing more than a minor guest character who would show up briefly and then disappear from the series forever. The producers and writers had planned for Sandra to make just a few appearances as a neighbor who would provide some comedic moments before moving on, never imagining that this man-hungry, flamboyant character would become such an integral part of the show's success. When Jackée Harry first auditioned for the role, the creative team saw Sandra as a simple supporting character who might appear in a handful of episodes throughout the season to add some variety to the apartment building's resident dynamics. The original concept for the series focused primarily on Mary Jenkins and her immediate family, with other neighbors like Pearl Shea and Rose Holloway serving as the main supporting characters who would drive most of the storylines and provide the majority of the comedy. However, something unexpected happened when the early episodes featuring Sandra Clark were shown to test audiences during the development process, as viewers responded to the character with an enthusiasm that completely surprised the show's creators. The audience testing revealed that people found Sandra's over-the-top personality, distinctive voice, and outrageous fashion choices absolutely hilarious, and many test viewers specifically mentioned wanting to see more of this particular neighbor in future episodes. Based on these overwhelmingly positive audience reactions, the producers made the decision to completely restructure their original plans and expand Sandra's role from an occasional guest appearance to a full-time cast member. This change required significant rewrites of planned storylines and a rethinking of how the apartment building's social dynamics would work, but the investment proved worthwhile as Sandra Clark became one of the show's most popular characters. The decision to promote Sandra from guest character to series regular based purely on audience feedback demonstrates how unpredictable the creative process can be, and how sometimes the most successful elements of a television series emerge organically rather than being planned from the beginning. Fact 7. Jackée changed her name after Emmy-winning. The actress who brought Sandra Clark to life made a bold decision to reinvent her professional identity right at the peak of her television success, when Jackée Harry chose to drop her last name entirely and rebrand herself as simply Jackée, starting with the third season of 227 in 1987. This dramatic name change came directly after her historic Emmy win for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, making her the first African-American woman to receive this particular honor and it represented her confidence that she had achieved enough recognition to be known by just one name. When the show first premiered, the actress was credited as Jackie Harry in all promotional materials, opening credits, and industry publications, following the traditional Hollywood practice of using both first and last names for professional recognition. However, after winning the Emmy Award and experiencing the incredible boost in fame and recognition that came with both the award and the massive popularity of her Sandra Clark character, she felt ready to take the unusual step of adopting a mononym stage name. The decision to go by just Jackie was fairly uncommon in television at the time, as most actors and actresses maintained their full names throughout their careers to build consistent brand recognition with audiences and industry professionals. However, Jackie felt that her character had become so iconic and her performance so distinctive that viewers would immediately know who she was without needing the additional identifier of her last name. This single-name branding strategy worked remarkably well during the height of her 227 fame, and she continued using just Jackie as her professional name until 1994, when she eventually returned to using her full name Jackie Harry for subsequent projects. The 7-year period when she was known simply as Jackie coincided perfectly with her time as one of television's most recognizable comedy actresses, demonstrating how a well-timed name change can actually enhance rather than confuse an entertainer's public image when they have achieved sufficient fame and audience recognition. Fact 8. Countess Vaughn, cast after Star Search declaration. The 11-year-old child prodigy who joined 227 in its 4th season got her role through one of the most unusual casting stories in television history when Countess Vaughn appeared on the popular talent competition show Star Search and made a spontaneous declaration that would change her life forever. During her appearance on the show, when host Ed McMahon asked the young performer about her interests and aspirations, Vaughn enthusiastically told the national television audience that her favorite show was 227, having no idea that the show's producers would be watching and taking note of her comment. Vaughn had already impressed the Star Search audience and judges with her powerful singing voice, ultimately winning the Junior Vocalist Championship and the overall Junior Champion title. But it was her off-the-cuff mention of 227 that caught the attention of the people who could actually make her television dreams come true. The show's casting directors and producers were apparently watching that particular episode of Star Search and were struck by both Vaughn's talent and her genuine enthusiasm for their series. The timing of Vaughn's Star Search appearance couldn't have been more perfect, as the producers of 227 had been looking for ways to inject new energy into the show during its 4th season, and they had specifically been considering adding a young character who could bring a fresh dynamic to the apartment building's existing relationships. Vaughn's combination of obvious talent, natural charisma, and demonstrated love for the show made her seem like the ideal candidate for this new role. The character of Alexandria DeWitt was created specifically for Vaughn, designed as an 11-year-old genius who would move in with the Jenkins family as their houseguest, bringing her advanced intellect and sophisticated vocabulary into humorous conflict with the more down-to-earth residents of the building. Although Vaughn's time on the show was relatively brief, lasting only 1 season before her character departed to reunite with her father, who had been working on an archaeological dig in the Amazon, her casting story remains one of the most charming examples of how television opportunities can arise from the most unexpected circumstances. Fact 9. Child actress lost role due to homesick mother. Sometimes a promising television career can end not because of poor performance or creative differences, but simply because a parent decides that family happiness is more important than Hollywood success, which is exactly what happened to young Kia Goodwin, who played Rose's daughter Tiffany on 227. Goodwin had been cast as a series regular during the show's 1st season and was expected to continue growing up alongside the other characters throughout the series' run, but her mother's struggle to adjust to life in California completely changed those plans. The Goodwin family had relocated from New York to Los Angeles so that Kia could pursue her acting career and fulfill her contract obligations with the show, but the move proved much more difficult for her mother than anyone had anticipated. While Kia was thriving in her role and building relationships with her fellow cast members, her mother found herself increasingly unhappy and homesick for their life back on the East Coast, missing the familiar surroundings, friends, and support systems they had left behind. As the first season progressed and moved into the second year of production, Kia's mother made the difficult decision that the family's overall well-being was more important than any career opportunities, no matter how promising they might be. She approached the show's producers and requested that her daughter be released from her contract so the family could return to New York, where they felt more comfortable and connected to their community. The producers faced an unusual situation, as it's relatively rare for a young actor to leave a successful series due to family relocation rather than typical industry reasons like contract disputes or creative changes. However, they understood the mother's concerns and agreed to write Tiffany out of the series after the second season, allowing the Goodwin family to make their move back to New York. Kia did make one final appearance in a third season episode called The Sing-Off, giving the character a proper farewell, but her departure marked the end of what could have been a much longer television career if her family had been able to settle more comfortably into their California lifestyle. Fact 10. Helen Martin started Broadway at age 32. The actress who would later become beloved as the sassy Pearl Shea on 227 broke significant barriers in the theater world when Helen Martin made her Broadway debut at the age of 32 in 1941, appearing in the legendary Orson Welles production of Native Son, during a time when African-American actresses faced extremely limited opportunities in professional theater. Martin's casting in this groundbreaking production was particularly remarkable, because most women of color who managed to find work in theater during the 1940s were typically confined to playing domestic workers, nannies, or other subservient roles that reflected the racial stereotypes of the era. Native Son, based on Richard Wright's powerful novel, was considered one of the most important and controversial plays of its time because it dealt directly with issues of race, poverty, and social injustice in America, subjects that were rarely addressed honestly on Broadway stages. Orson Welles, who was already establishing himself as a revolutionary director in both theater and film, chose to mount this production specifically because he believed in the importance of bringing these difficult conversations to mainstream audiences. Martin's involvement in this production placed her at the center of a cultural moment that was challenging the entertainment industry's treatment of African-American performers and the types of stories that were considered acceptable for Broadway audiences. Rather than playing a stereotypical domestic character, she was part of a cast that was telling a complex, dramatic story that portrayed African-American characters as fully realized human beings dealing with serious social and economic challenges. The experience of working with Orson Welles and being part of such a significant theatrical production helped establish Martin as a serious actress who could handle demanding dramatic material, setting the foundation for a career that would eventually span more than 5 decades. Her Broadway debut in Native Son proved that she belonged on professional stages and opened doors for future opportunities in theater, television, and film that might not have been available to actresses who hadn't demonstrated their abilities in such a prestigious and groundbreaking production. Fact 11. Kevin Peter Hall was 7'2", Predator actor. The gentle, romantic character of Warren Merriweather, who appeared in the final season of 227, was portrayed by an actor whose most famous role couldn't have been more different from the sweet husband he played on the sitcom, because Kevin Peter Hall stood an incredible 7 feet and 2 inches tall and had become a household name for playing terrifying movie monsters. Hall's extraordinary height made him one of the most sought-after actors in Hollywood for roles that required imposing physical presence, and his most iconic performance was as the deadly alien hunter in the science fiction thriller Predator, alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. The contrast between Hall's Warren Merriweather and his Predator character was almost comically extreme, as viewers watching 227 saw him as a kind, soft-spoken police officer who was head over heels in love with Rose Holloway, while moviegoers knew him as an invisible extraterrestrial creature that stalked and killed elite military commandos in the jungle. Hall's ability to bring warmth and humanity to his television role, despite being best known for playing a merciless alien killer, Hall's towering stature came from genetics, as both of his parents were exceptionally tall, with his father standing 6 feet 6 inches and his mother measuring 6 feet 2 inches, making Kevin the tallest member of a family where all the brothers were at least 6 feet 5 inches. This natural height advantage led him to a successful college basketball career, before he discovered that Hollywood had a constant need for actors who could convincingly portray giants, monsters, and otherworldly creatures. Before joining 227, Hall had already established himself as a specialist in creature roles, not only playing the Predator but also starring as the friendly Bigfoot-like character Harry in Harry and the Hendersons, showing his range within the specific niche of playing non-human characters. His casting as Warren Merriweather represented one of the few times in his career when audiences could see his actual face and hear his real voice, rather than experiencing his performance through elaborate makeup, costumes, and special effects. Fact 12. Real-life marriage became TV storyline. Sometimes television storylines mirror real life in the most unexpected ways. And 227 provided a perfect example when Kevin Peter Hall and Elena Reed fell in love while working together on the show, leading the writers to incorporate their actual romance into the series by having their characters get married on screen. Hall had been cast as Warren Merriweather specifically to be a love interest for Reed's character Rose Holloway. But what started as professional acting chemistry between the two performers quickly developed into genuine romantic feelings that extended far beyond their scripted scenes. The relationship between Hall and Reed began during the production of the show's final season, when Hall was brought in as part of the effort to revitalize the series with new characters and storylines after several original cast members had departed. Reed, who had been playing the level-headed Rose since the series premiere, found herself genuinely attracted to the gentle giant who towered over everyone else on set, but displayed remarkable kindness and sensitivity in his interactions with the entire cast and crew. As their off-camera relationship grew more serious, the show's writers and producers made the decision to reflect this real-life romance in the show's storyline, creating a 2-part wedding episode called Do Not Pass Go, where Rose and Warren would officially tie the knot in front of their apartment building neighbors. This decision allowed the series to capitalize on the authentic chemistry between the two actors, while giving longtime viewers a satisfying romantic storyline for Rose, who had been a widow throughout most of the show's run. The parallel between fiction and reality became complete when Hall and Reed decided to get married in real life on December 29, 1988, making their on-screen wedding ceremony even more meaningful, since it reflected their actual commitment to each other. This blending of their professional and personal lives created a unique situation where audiences were essentially watching a real couple portray fictional characters who were experiencing the same romantic milestones that the actors themselves were going through, adding an extra layer of authenticity to their performances that would have been impossible to achieve through acting alone. Fact 13. Pearl appeared in every single episode. While many television series struggle with cast changes and character departures over their run, 227 had one character who remained absolutely constant throughout the entire series, as Pearl Shea became the only resident of the apartment building to appear in all 116 episodes that were produced during the show's 5-year run. This remarkable achievement becomes even more impressive when considering that not even the main characters of Mary Jenkins, Lester Jenkins, or Rose Holloway managed to appear in every single episode, making Pearl's perfect attendance record truly unique in the show's history. Helen Martin's commitment to the series and her character was so complete that she managed to maintain Pearl's presence even during episodes that focused heavily on other characters or storylines that might not have naturally included her. Whether Pearl was leaning out of her ground floor window to offer commentary on the latest neighborhood drama, sitting on the front stoop sharing gossip with Mary and Rose, or simply making brief appearances to deliver one of her trademark sarcastic observations, Martin ensured that her character remained a consistent part of the show's fabric. The most remarkable aspect of Pearl's perfect attendance record is that it extended beyond the regular series episodes to include even the unusual backdoor pilot episode titled Jack A., which was designed as a potential spin-off series focusing on Sandra Clark's move to New York City. While this special episode featured Sandra as the main character and didn't include appearances by Mary, Lester, or Rose, Pearl still managed to make an appearance as a guest star, maintaining her streak of being in every single piece of 227 content that was ever produced. This backdoor pilot episode aired on May 11, 1989, and was essentially a test run for a potential new series that would follow Sandra's adventures in her new city. But when the spin-off wasn't picked up by the network, the episode was incorporated into the regular 227 episode count. Pearl's appearance in this special episode demonstrates both Helen Martin's dedication to the character and the producer's recognition that Pearl had become such an essential part of the show's identity that even a spin-off attempt needed her presence. Fact 14. Part of NBC's legendary Saturday night lineup, during the height of its popularity, 227 became a crucial component of what many television historians consider one of the most successful and culturally significant Saturday night programming blocks in broadcast history. As NBC strategically assembled a lineup that included 227, Amen, The Golden Girls, Empty Nest, and the action drama Hunter, to create an evening of television that dominated the ratings and captured the attention of millions of viewers every week. This carefully crafted programming strategy transformed Saturday night from a traditionally difficult time slot into NBC's most reliable ratings winner, proving that audiences would stay home to watch quality television, even on what was supposed to be the biggest social night of the week. The genius of NBC's Saturday night lineup was how it created a seamless flow of entertainment that appealed to multiple generations and demographics, starting with family-friendly sitcoms in the early evening and gradually transitioning to more sophisticated content as the night progressed. 227 typically aired at 8 o'clock, providing wholesome family entertainment that parents could watch with their children, while The Golden Girls later in the evening attracted an older audience who appreciated the show's wit and mature themes. This programming block became so successful that it essentially redefined how networks approached Saturday night television, challenging the long-held belief that people wouldn't watch television on Saturday evenings because they were out socializing or attending events. NBC's Saturday lineup proved that compelling, well-produced shows could keep audiences at home regardless of what night they aired, and the success of this strategy influenced programming decisions at other networks for years to come. The Saturday night lineup also created a unique cultural phenomenon, where families and friends would plan their weekend activities around staying home to watch these shows together, turning Saturday evening television viewing into a social activity in itself. The combination of 227's apartment building community dynamics, The Golden Girls' sharp humor, and the other shows in the lineup created an evening of entertainment that felt like spending time with extended family, making NBC's Saturday night appointment television for millions of American households throughout the 1980s. Fact 15. Regina King's TV debut at age 14. The teenage actress who played Brenda Jenkins, the studious and boy-crazy daughter of Mary and Lester, was making her very first appearance on television when she joined the cast of 227 at just 14 years old, marking the beginning of what would eventually become one of the most celebrated and award-winning careers in modern entertainment. Regina King had no previous television or film experience when she auditioned for the role of Brenda, but her natural acting ability and authentic portrayal of a smart, ambitious teenager living in a close-knit community immediately impressed the casting directors and producers. King's mother, Gloria, played a crucial role in ensuring that her daughter's early success wouldn't interfere with her education or personal development, famously telling NBC executives that if Regina was going to play Brenda, she would continue attending regular public school rather than switching to one of the private Hollywood schools that many child actors attended. This decision proved instrumental in keeping King grounded during her formative years and helped her develop the real-world perspective and understanding of different types of people that would later serve her well in choosing diverse and challenging roles throughout her career. The 5 years that King spent on 227 provided her with an invaluable education in professional acting, as she learned her craft while working alongside experienced performers like Marla Gibbs, who served as both a co-star and a mentor during King's transition from teenager to young adult. King has spoken about how much she learned from watching Gibbs navigate the responsibilities of being both the star and producer of the show, witnessing firsthand how a woman could take creative control and make important decisions in an industry that didn't always provide those opportunities. After 227 ended in 1990, King used the foundation she had built on the show to launch a film career that would include collaborations with acclaimed directors like John Singleton in Boys and the Hood and Higher Learning, eventually leading to her Academy Award win for Best Supporting Actress for If Beale Street Could Talk, and multiple Emmy Awards for her work in television, proving that her 14-year-old debut was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey in entertainment.